The second coming of Donald Trump. The whole globe has been positively mesmerized, dazzled by the furious optics of Donald Trump's installation in power in Washington for a second time. There has been a grand air of triumphalism and vindication, and the impact has been global. Now, the focus of the media has primarily been on the barrage of statements that he has made, and on the very first day of his inauguration, the 200 executive orders that he has signed. Most of them pertain to internal issues like declaring an emergency on the Mexico border to stop the illegal immigration, like taking away the birth right to become a citizen due to the fact of birth in the United States if your parents are not legal migrants or legal immigrants and do not have legal status of a citizen of the United States, and a number of other issues like coming out of the WHO, World Health Organization, scrapping the global warming accords that America had acceded to under Joe Biden, and planning to extract oil with a vengeance, as a rebuttal to the green wave earlier. We've been mostly focused on these internal issues. In the bargain, what has been completely lost sight of is the massive paradigm shift that Trump 2.0 represents. Now let me explain this. Trump has in one fell stroke scrapped globalization. He has scrapped all the globalist agendas of the previous democratic dispensation. He is now on a hyper-nationalist agenda. A hyper-nationalist agenda that marks a paradigm shift. He has talked of ingesting Canada as the 51st state of the United States. He has talked of either buying Greenland from the Dutch or, if necessary, taking it by military force. He has talked of taking over the Panama Canal, which Panama had handed over to the Chinese for maintenance, and they are controlling the Panama Canal right now. Donald Trump has talked of this hyper-ventilated nationalist agenda which gives primacy to America's national security interests over everything else. Why does he want Canada? Why does he want Greenland? You see, the American early warning system, the NORAD, for early warning of Russian ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads, Chinese ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads that will fly over the pole, shortest distance to America, is based on the front line of Canada and Alaska. Now, that entire missile threat has undergone a paradigm shift. Today, you have hypersonic ballistic missiles, hypersonic intermediate range missiles like the Oreshniks. You have the Chinese ballistic missiles, the Chinese hypersonic missiles, all enhancing the threat to the United States of America. The present early warning system of the radars, the gridded radars of the NORAD, is not sufficient to deter this threat. Therefore, Trump wants to take over Greenland, which is also on the way to the Arctic and also provides an avenue for early warning of any missile attack. Trump wants to create an iron dome, infallible iron dome system for the United States, whatever be the cost. He wants to create a new Star Wars complex that will insulate America from the threat of these intercontinental ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles that the Russians and the Chinese today have in plenty. So therefore, the threat to the United States, continental United States, has gone up by many orders of magnitude. most of these hypersonic missiles today are absolutely unstoppable. That the Russians have demonstrated by the use of their Iskandars, their Kinzhals, their Oreshniks, and there is much more in their arsenal. And so have the Chinese acquired hypersonic missiles, including hypersonic intercontinental ballistic missiles. So the danger to the United States is of an entirely different order, and the United States is now giving primacy to the direct threats to its national security. Everything else takes a back seat. So Donald Trump has said in no uncertain terms, Canada should become the 51st state of the United States, period. You can lump it, you can cry over it, you can do what you want. But America will work towards making Canada the 51st states of the United States. Trudeau has gotten his marching orders, hung his head very sadly and is out of power. Right? And now he has said, I will take Greenland if required by force. I will take the Panama Canal if required by force. This is the end of globalism, a global order. You know, they were talking of free pathways, waterways, which are free of interference, the right of freedom of navigation, and international global order that preserves the status quo. Is all history, passé. Today, if Donald Trump thinks that in the national security interests of the United States, he wants to take over Greenland, so be it. That is what will happen. If he wants to take over Canada, so be it. If he wants to take over the Panama Canal, so be it. He's already started, like the Chinese are very fond of renaming places. He's renamed the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America, period. Now this is a brand new era of hyper-nationalism, very, very in-your-face nationalism. There's a far cry from the globalism of Biden and his predecessors. The global order, America as the global policeman. This now resembles the era of World War I. This now resembles the era of World War II, multipolarity eras, in which each country which had the military muscle, economic muscle, was trying to ramrod its way through, and acquire whatever territory it felt was essential for its national interest. Look at Hitler. He invaded the whole of Western Europe, conquered all the Low Countries, reached France, switched over and attacked Russia. We need that depth, we need those minerals, we need those grain resources, oil resources, period. Those resources, we need them, we'll get them. This is what we have come back to, and the world is oblivious of these changes. We need this resource, we'll get it. We need the Panama Canal, we had given it away for $1, we'll take it back because they have given it to the Chinese. Trump says we didn't give it to the China, we gave it to Panama. And Panama can't hand it over to the Chinese because it's against our security interests. We will take the Panama Canal back, period. The world has missed this transition altogether. This is what we need to focus on, because this will dictate how the future will unfold and evolve. Now, Donald Trump was very keen to start his new tenure with a flourish. He said, I am a man of peace. He is openly now trying for the Nobel Peace Prize. He felt Obama got it for the wrong reasons. He got it at the beginning of his term, you see. Therefore, Donald Trump now wants to be the man of peace, and he had said that the day I will take over, the Middle East conflict will finish, and within 24 hours of my taking charge, I will ensure that there is a ceasefire between in situ ceasefire. Where you are, you will stop the conflict, and I will have this in situ ceasefire and perhaps enforce a demilitarized zone on the combatants and in the demilitarized zone, probably along the Dnieper River, we will have European troops, NATO troops, boots on the ground. Now, back and forth negotiations have been going on between Russia and the United States. Lieutenant General Kellogg, who's the Trump's pointsman for these negotiations, has been in talks with the Russians. And Donald Trump was hopeful because the CIA had briefed him that Russia has suffered 1 million casualties, Ukraine has suffered just 700 million. So Ukraine is more or less, got the upper hand. Now, on what basis the CIA has come to these very specious conclusions is not known. It's more like wish fulfillment. This is what we wanted as the end state. That is what has happened. Russia is tired, and if Donald Trump gives him an exit platform, an exit route, he will grab it with both hands. He will say, yes, I have had enough and I want peace. And that's not the ground situation, because Putin had said no. Putin knows he is winning the ground war. Zelensky may try and win the war on the television screens and social media. He may fire his barrage of drones at Russia. Let me tell you a military reality. These drones carry warheads of 20 to 30 kgs at best, and most of the time lesser. The damage they can do is unlimited. Yes, if you fire them at a Russian petrochemical refinery, a chemical factory, they will set fires, and the fires make for very good visual optics. But the level of damage that Russia is inflicting in return by its non-stop retaliations with the Iskander missiles, with the other missiles that the Russians are using, the warheads are 700 kilograms to 500 kilograms. Do you see the difference in lethality levels? 20 to 30 kilograms of explosives versus 500 to 700 kilograms of explosives on the Iskandars, on the Kinzhals, on the Zircon Russian missiles. So, to show that he is winning the war of the narratives, Zelensky has been like Nero, firing away on all cylinders. He's used all the ATACMs, all the HIMARS. Most of them have been shot down. Most of the Storm Shadows have been shot down. The damage to Russia is limited so far, but it is annoying. It is annoying. And every time Zelensky does this, Putin responds savagely with his Iskandars, with his Zircons and with his, Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, which are unstoppable. No Ukrainian defensive systems have so far been able to stop the Iskandars. They claim they have shot down some Kinzhal, but those are very specious claims. Not much data has been adduced to prove those claims. So the day Donald Trump was taking charge, Zelensky let loose a barrage of his drones on various Russian cities. The whole aim of this needling of Putin is to invite a catastrophic response. They were hoping that they would be able to needle Russia adequately so that Russia would react with a nuclear counter-strike or by widening the war. They were hoping it would happen in Joe Biden's tenure. For then Joe Biden and the deep state would have a reason to declare an emergency and possibly postpone Donald Trump's assumption of power. But Putin was smart enough to understand and not to comply with the provocations being so freely made by Washington and Ukraine and the NATO. But that scenario has changed with Donald Trump now fully in command. Donald Trump was sanguine that Russia was taking a battering. That's what the CIA told him. That is what Zelensky told him. That is what his NATO allies told him. A lot of wish fulfillment, a lot of very self-congratulatory narratives. I'm afraid they are not the reality on the ground. What matters in military terms is the ground reality, of which Zelensky is very far divorced from the ground reality. And because the Americans, the NATO, want to buy hook, line and sinker his narratives of victory, as per Zelensky, by now Putin should have fled Russia, he should have been deposed, and Zelensky should have taken back all the territory and possibly been invading Russia proper, which he tried to do in Kursk, and he is come a cropper. So the unfortunate narrative that is facing us today is that Joe Biden, before he demitted office, did everything possible in collusion with Zelensky, in collusion with the European countries, to create an impossible situation for Donald Trump. Donald Trump wanted peace. Why? He wanted to some time for consolidation to dismantle the deep state in America, to revitalize the American economy and to rebuild the American military, especially with a kind of an Iron Dome system which would make it missile proof. That was his plan. And for that he needed a period of peace, quiet and consolidation. So he was able to prevail upon Netanyahu to stop the war in the Middle East. He wanted peace and quiet, so the war in the Middle East had to stop. He was very sanguine that he could stop the war in Ukraine and gain for himself the period of peace and consolidation and rebuilding the economy, rebuilding the arsenal of depleted artillery ammunition, depleted surface-to-air missiles, anti-ballistic missiles, which they have been giving to Ukraine, and Ukraine has been firing them like there is no tomorrow, because he has a Khul Sim Sim to get all the missiles, all the ammunition and arms and ammunition that he wants. The original armaments with the Ukrainian army have been destroyed 3 times over. And had it not been for this all-out American and NATO support, Ukraine would have collapsed many, many months ago. Even today, Ukraine is on the brinks of military collapse, especially on the ground. Steadily but relentlessly, Russia has been making progress in Donetsk, especially towards Pokrovsk, and especially towards Zaporizhzhia, especially in the north, in the direction of Chasiv Yar and Kharkiv. Relentless progress the Russians have been making. They have learned their lessons. They have adjusted to the massive use of drones, which cause heavy casualties to tanks and armored vehicles. They have started with infantry stormtrooper attacks, which have worked. Electronic warfare is playing a very major part in this whole battle, and the Russians have been using extremely heavy firepower in terms of the FAB glide toss bombs. Now the Americans began to jam these bombs in the Kursk salient, in the battle that was taking place there. American EW jammers were deployed also in the east to try and stop these glide toss bombs of 2,000 kilograms, 3,000 kilogram warhead. You know, it's a dumb bomb of World War II era, but they strap on wings and they strap on a navigational guidance system like a GPS guidance system. The Russians use the GLONASS. The American EW began to jam the GLONASS. So the Russians retrofitted this FAB system with 2 guidance systems, so that if one is jammed, the other can still lead the bomb to the target. And with that, they have resumed the terrific carpet bombing of Kursk. They have restarted the carpet bombing in Petrovsk and the entire Donetsk, Luhansk front. In Kursk, they have taken about 65% of the area that Ukraine had managed to capture. Give it a few more days, a week perhaps, the Kursk saga would be over. It would be history. made a tremendous waste of resources and very well-trained manpower which has been wasted in this prestige offensive for political reasons, not so much for military reasons. Zelensky wanted to tell the West, he wanted to tell Europe that I am winning. I mean, you can't get more delusional than that. The ground reality is biting home now, day by day. And therefore, Putin said, when I am on the victory roll, why should I stop and break my momentum? If I give them time to breathe, they will rebuild so many defense lines, plant mines by the millions. As it is, the Americans have given a whole lot of mines now to the Ukrainians to stop the Russian attacks in Kursk and also in the east. We are complicating the situation for the Russians. So he said, I am on a victory roll. My forces have gotten the upper hand. There is no reason why I should stop till my minimal goals are met. And what are these minimal goals of the special military operations? He wants to take the whole of Donetsk and Luhansk. He has taken, more or less completed that job. The last bit is left. Then he wants to advance up to the line of the Dnipro river and gain that as a natural obstacle, as a natural dividing line, right? Kursk, he's taken 65% of territory back. The balance 35%, he will, I'm very certain, with the kind of firepower that is being used, he will do so. The Ukrainians and the Russians both were using drones. In the Kursk salient, the Americans sent in electronic warfare to jam Russian drones, and they got some success temporarily. But the Russians quickly adjusted and used drones with fiber optic cables, which can't be jammed. I mean, it is a tremendous conflict, but Russia is gaining the upper hand. Let me repeat and summarize. Ukraine is trying to show the world that it is very much in action. It's not down, it may be down, it's not out. The fact is that 200,000 Ukrainian soldiers have deserted, and they are deserting in droves because they see they are being used by foreign powers to fight like a battering ram against Russia, to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. And it is the CIA and the others which prevailed upon Ukraine to reduce the mobilization age from 25 to 18. And in the bargain, they are picking up teenagers from the streets and shoving them into the war. The Americans want to bleed Russia, and they wouldn't give a damn if the last Ukrainian died. At least Biden wouldn't give a damn till the last Ukrainian was sacrificed. Donald Trump wanted to change that. Biden has created a situation before going, the deep state had created a situation before going, which has made it virtually impossible. Putin says, I don't want a ceasefire, I want a permanent settlement. Putin says Zelensky lacks legitimacy. The tenure of his regime was over many months back, and by an emergency decree he is going on. So how do we know that any future Ukrainian government will abide by the agreements that Zelensky signs? So, this grandiose flourish that Donald Trump wanted to start his tenure with, that 24 hours and I'll have a ceasefire in Russia, was based on a faulty premise that Russia had it. Militarily, they were on their last breath. That was the CIA narrative. But it was a self-serving narrative, and the truth has now come out that Putin says, no, I can go on, I will fight. I want a permanent settlement. I don't want a token ceasefire which allows NATO to put boots on the ground and claim, partial victory by saying, like Korea, we've reached a standstill. We've reached a, impasse. No further progression is possible. So he started, as I had forecasted, it would not be feasible for Donald Trump to impose such a solution in 24 hours. No way. Russia is not biting. Putin and Xi Jinping have held a 1.5 hours long consultation because Chinese are worried about the Panama Canal being taken away from their control The Chinese are worried that Donald Trump is likely to intensify the trade war against China, and at a point in time he wants to designate China as the main threat, the main enemy, and pivot back to Asia. It doesn't suit China. Joe Biden, before he went, wanted to ensure, he was almost keen to start a third world war. He has almost succeeded. He's almost succeeded. And now Donald Trump is faced with a piquant situation. The war in Europe continues. The European nations are now, they have been alarmed by the fact that he is threatened to take over Greenland by force from a European nation. And therefore, they are trying to project a very hostile attitude to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said he is not at all keen on NATO. He finds it a waste of resources. They talk, they don't carry, they lift the military weight. Most of the nations still don't have 2% of their GDP being spent on defense, and Donald Trump is keen to walk out. Now, this can lead to some very strange, very surprising denouements. Very surprising denouements, and we'll have to keenly wait and watch. Are we going to get into a truly splintered multipolar situation with America, with Europe, with China, with Russia, with India, as the multipolar poles of a multipolar world? Don't forget, World War I was a multipolar world order. World War II, there was a multipolar world order, and now that we are inches from World War III, at least we were till Donald Trump was on the seat, hot seat, he was trying desperately to start World War III. Possibly he saw that as a chance to hang on to power, which he had clearly lost. So now, if this is the machinations of the deep state, Donald Trump is quite justified in trying to dismantle that deep state. He'll have to work some way out in which he can stop this conflict hemorrhaging in Europe, focus on reconstruction, rebuilding, reconsolidation of military power, economic power, and also dismantle this deep state. Dismantle this deep state. We'll have to wait and watch as the situation unfolds. We are in a new world order.